Hey folks, Nick Tockert here, barely, with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get into the glory that is going to be this episode, because this is a good one, folks, huge shout out to Trelana and Joe Bachman for setting this stream up for me while I was stuck. If you are anywhere near Lafayette, Indiana, thinking of going out or being on the road, don't. We're talking zero visibility, flooding all over the place, and maniacs who don't understand what hydroplaning is. But thank you for your patience. It gave me just enough time to get here. I will broadcast as long as the stream calls for it or the weather holds. It may be an either or kind of situation. But before we get into that, we need to pay some bills. The Historical Fencing Guild is brought to you with the love and support of our good friends over at the Independent Creator Directory. That's IndieCD.org. Where did that? And it is no longer there. So what we're going to do is bring up the donation one because for some reason... Oh, there it is. Here we go. IndieCD.org, your one-stop shop for the best and the brightest authors, artists, and musicians. We are also made possible by sales of... The Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear, all part of my ongoing series of Western martial arts manuals designed to help you go from having never handled the sword to teaching the art to others. And, most importantly, we are made possible by my amazing Patreon patrons. The good folks who invest a little bit every month so that I can afford to do things that educate and elevate people at no cost to the people, usually. Now, we have some news. As soon as we get past this stormy situation, I will be firing up my forge. I am excited for that on levels I'd care not to express in public. I haven't taken this off because it's still soaked, and if I take it off, it'll soak wherever it is so it can dry on me. Now, we have a lot of comments, so I'm going to hop and pop my way through these amazing comments, and then we'll get into today's topic because the game may be changing, and I'm going to have to throw money at something to find out. If it sounds like I am peak excited, that's because I am peak excited. Now, first was our notice that due to construction, and yes, this all happened, flooding around construction. It's been a nightmare. And first of the door is Trelana. Thank you, Trey. Hey, Trey. As it says Thesis. Hey, Thesis. Thank you guys for your patience. Evening. Hey. And hello, Cindy Cat. How are you? I hope you're having a good one. And we have greetings. And we have Kitty's here. Hello, Kitty. And what do knights use to clean their armor? We're going to have an amazing comedy show from our own Cindy Cat. Bless this woman. But Night Tide and hello Ruby. You may want to pay attention especially because if this works out, you may be interested in what's coming. What do you call a knight who is too scared to fight? Surrender. LOL. Circumference is the roundest knight at the round table. He has all the angles. Hey Ruby. What's a knight's favorite dish? A swordfish. The knight known for borrowing money was surcharge. And what do you call a knight who has too much stuff? Surplus. The knight who turned priest should now be called Sir Bun. The most reliable knight? Sir Dainty. Knight best knight skilled at repairing shoes, Sir Cobbler. He nailed it. How did the sword win the talent show? It gave a cutting-edge performance. How does the sword keep fit? By doing crossguard training. Why was the sword so calm and collected? I had a point to make. What was the sword's favorite game at parties? Pin the tail on the dragon. What's the sword's favorite type of music? Heavy metal. Oh, he's here. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Yes, as I said before, I managed to shoot a message off to Trey and Amanda to let them know just how bad things were looking for me. And I literally came through the door, dropped my stuff, grabbed my phone, make sure it was set up, and came shooting in here to get here on time. I'm glad you enjoy the humor. Now, I check through a lot of things. I check through a lot of sword trainers, and I check up our regulars. So naturally, I am prone to hi. Dusty. Come here. Okay. Just don't step on the keyboard. Yeah, don't step on. Yes, I'm okay. I was gone too long. Okay. Are you going to just hunker? Are you going to hunker? Or are you going to knock everything down? Okay. I left the door open. That's my fault. I came skittering in. You comfy? You can look at the little red dot. Yeah. And they can see your pretty eyes. Okay. Yes, the jokes were a perfect level of grown worthy. Now, I do check these things, and I am sorry for the lack of professionalism on today's show. It's been one of those. They were very worried because I wasn't home when I'm supposed to be. I saw something. Yeah, Foxy, this is Dusty. Dusty, that's Foxy and everyone. Hot. Yes, I love you. Yes, I love you. Beep. Yes. Okay. May I run my stream now? No? Hi. Okay. Your nose is wet. Anyway. Uh-oh. Somebody's jealous. It's going to be one of those nights. Anyway. Hi. I was looking through the different weapons and trainers like I always do, and I happened to bought something that I'm excited about. So let's bring this up. One moment. Ouch, 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 and ouch. We're going to do this and check this little bit of wonder out. Our good friends have found what looks to me like a new kind of plastic, because that's not a color their weapons used to come in, and he could never do something this fine. Yeah, sure. Yes, I know. Okay. So I am just beyond pleased. As soon as I have the means to do it, I will be acquiring at least 2 of these. There's no doubt in my mind. But as you know, I've had some financial hits, so it'll take a bit. However, as a backup dagger, as a proper concealed dagger, this is beautiful. And the more important thing is, if he can make something like this sturdy enough to actually spar with reasonably, then we have a chance at him making a basic version of, my baby. Because how much would I sing and dance? What happened here? Oh, it's dying. Okay, well, my improvised sheath is dying. To have, hold on, can I do it like this? No, I can't. Okay, that's fine too. Hi. One of these beautiful pieces. I'm not unsheathing it because I have a cat. I'm not going to unsheath live steel with my cat. Hi, Stuart. What are you doing? Okay. Stuart, but you don't care. You are the center. They should have no. See, that's the thing. They should have no flex. They are listed almost always as having little to no flex at all. Yes, I know you were worried. You were worried. Okay. Can I put you down now? I'd like to do my show. No? Okay, fine. Yep, we're going to have a fluffy co-host for a bit. Anyway, so it will be fascinating, the safety of these and the quality of these, because like I said, it looks like a new plastic. And part of the reason I say it's a new plastic if you will allow me to return to where I was. How did I have that? No, oh, no, not that one. That one is this. There's another new sword out. Actually, there's several, but this one, that's a nice arming sword. Two, this appears to be essentially a 5-finger arming sword. This really interests me, as I am a big fan of arming swords, believe it or not, because I like the weapons of civilian defense far more than weapons of martial defense, because I am at heart a civilian, right? Okay. I don't know if you're being nice to them or mad at me or agitated. But this metal looks to be a very different tone. This plastic looks to be a very different tone than the previous. And I am wondering what its qualities are, because that is a pinned crossguard that doesn't have the rubber. And the blade looks sturdy enough to tolerate that. Now, I'm not a big fan of the weight removal holes. I never will be, but I'm intrigued by that as well. And I definitely, looking at the way that came out, the pointer trainer is something I very much need to get my paws on, preferably with the brown grip rack. I think I'm really, really going to enjoy that. And that will, yes, okay, sure. You are not being subtle. Anyway. Dusty, can I do my show, please? They've waited an extra half hour. Oh, no. Or you could choke me. Choking me works. Okay, you're going down. Oh. Okay, sorry about that. But these are fitting a very distinct place of the 24-inch blade, roughly 30-inch overall, which is really a sweet spot for self-defense and secondary blades. They're really great range for indoor blades. And I understand that by saying pointer blade, this is totally not referencing anything needle or needle-like. But I think that will be, as I've scaled remarkably close to Arya Stark, just take of that as you will. But I think that will be a very, very useful trainer for a lot of my target studio students. Ooh, yes. Unfortunately, I am balancing between getting the forge equipment set up and getting more trainers to test and use. So right now I'm leaning towards the forge setup, because in the long run I can use that to make money. I think you'll understand. In fact, I'm planning to hammer out some very distinct nails. Not nails, I make mini swords as part of jewelry. And then I will probably be sending them to some folks. I'm hoping to send them to, some really kind folks. But, and yes, I agree. Trelena will definitely need to let us know how they come out. Of course, if she gets them before I do, it's a horrible excuse in the coming very near weeks for us to start practices again. For those of you who don't know, on the practice front, one moment, we can go back to Joy Shopping later. I I've been delayed in part because I was going to have to bush hog basically my entire backyard and the list field again. However, we were hammered with recorded 100-mile-an-hour horizontal winds. In a strange act of nature, those winds decided, amongst other things, the vast majority of the tall and mostly dead itchy weeds needed to not be there anymore. So the vast majority of them aren't. They just left, and a bunch got flattened down. Yep, it'll blow the stripes right off a zebra, Cindy. Now, it did do some damage to the side of my house, not enough for the insurance cover, of course. So we have to deal with that after we deal with the water heater blowing out, after we dealt with the boiler blowing out, after we dealt with the struts on my car going out, after we dealt with the seatbelts on my car going out, after we dealt with the exhaust on the truck, the big truck going out, after we dealt with the brakes on the little car going out after they got bashed by that piece of metal. I have been on a run. So we are rather comfortably strapped for a bit. We are holding together. We are okay. I will be much happier when we have hot water again, but we are making it. It just is delaying my fun stuff like swords and smithing. But I think we should be able to do that. And Trey says, do you have an arrival date for those, Ruby? It seems like you ordered those a while ago. Ruby should. I'm kind of surprised, but sometimes it takes a while to get from Purple Heart because it's basically a one-guy shop. He does everything, he and his wife. I don't know if he's got new staff. I hope so. And there, yeah, Canadian Post is on strike. The show is not political. The show is not political. The show is not political. But dear Canadians, Europeans, South Americans, anyone else, please understand that we didn't vote for this guy. We did not want him. And we're trying to survive living under that level of insanity. So thank you for your patience. I have heard something that the tariffs against Canada may have been canceled because the Congress may have voted to say no. So I'm hoping that is the case. Some of these checks and balances need to start checking and balancing very quickly. But we will find ways. Okay? I'm not sure how yet, but we will find ways. There are several other new trainers that are out of the low-cost variety that interested me, and I am intrigued to see them. So I'm just thinking we are at an opportunity, at least for some of the Americans, to not have to fight so hard, hopefully, for these guys, because we may have some problems getting the trainers from Amazon. And that is something I do need to say. The prices haven't jacked yet. They could at literally any moment. So if you were thinking about ordering, say, trainers from China or parts from European Union, or basically a whole lot of things related to a lot of the things I love, it's a good time to see what you can get, because prices are going to get spicy, which I am working on. I am gathering my notes and putting things together to revamp the Poor Swordmaster's Guide to Arms and Armor, and I want to get that done soon. I actually have to meet with my beta readers for Haints and Hellfire 2 and see if they would be okay with me putting that on a bit of a moratorium, on a bit of a hiatus, that is not moratorium, to double down on that. And it's insane. It's absolutely insane. No one wins with this. But all we can do is try to weather this storm, just like the storm I weathered getting here. And as things will be less available, I will be doing presentations, probably scripted, certainly pre-recorded, on making low-cost or no-cost training equipment, what you can, how to use what you have, thinking kind of way outside the box as needed. We may get a little Mad Maxian in our designs, but sometimes that's necessary. So we will see. I'm still trying to track down a reasonable throatless Beverly shear. Yes, Thesis. I am glad you got your Chinese lap guitar before the tariffs took hold. I'm sorry. I am feeling it a bit tonight, as today was my physical therapy kind of aptitude test. Every 2 weeks, I have to go in and they have to have me go through my entire PT routine. But it takes me anywhere from 45 to an hour and a half to do my physical therapy, and usually sometimes longer, and having to bang it out after whatever optional stuff they have me do first kind of kicks the crud out. Oh, it's dry now. It's dry, and believe it or not, because Fox says take care of yourself, Nick. Self-drying a jacket after PT is not one. No, believe it or not, it's acting like a cold pack. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I am approaching better physical health than I've been in between 5 and 10 years, between all that I'm doing. Oh, they hurt. Oh, no. Please don't mistake. I'm in blinding pain. And I will be eating immediately after this broadcast because I was expected to be home around 6. I was going to hit, Goodwill to shop for the kids and then make sure they didn't need anything and then head home. The fact that I didn't get home till after 8 tells you just how bad the roads were and the traffic around the roads. So, that was indeed very much a thing. It's interesting because I had lengthy talks with one of the physical therapists because they kind of rotate me around. I think that they just like seeing what happens when someone actually does what they're told, and it's rather rare. Pain can't be a deterrent for me, because if pain was too much of a deterrent, I wouldn't do anything. I'd just sit on the couch and probably play Minecraft. Maybe not even that. I might just slug in front of a TV, because as chronic pain people know, it's always there. But I am so much better than I have been that my scale isn't quite where it should be. So I am moving forward. I have upped my PT farther than they ordered because they allow me to. After discussion, I have upped my drilling a bit. For the first time in quite some time, I'm able to do 4.4 count lunges without the requirement of a balance aid, which does not sound like a major achievement until you realize just how hard it was for me. And your local PT place does towels for 10 minutes, and then you offer ice for 10 minutes after. Ice did both. I can understand that. No, I get to, when I'm doing PT, I get to go in. At this point, demonstrate that I am still performing the activities at a demonstrate that I am performing the activities with sufficient numbers and showing enough proper technique, and then they evaluate if they need to add more, and that's what we do every 2 weeks. Basically, I work myself up to being a sweaty mess, and then I get to leave because I have about half an hour to do between 45 minutes and 2 hours, depending on how bad it is. No, I understand. I understand cold would make me cramp up and erase any relaxation or gains I'd gotten. I understand that. It's a balance, and that's why we have to discuss these things, and we need to get to the point where we're discussing them openly. I do believe, and some people will, there are so many martial artists who get caught in the machismo and the mystic allure that they don't want to deal with the simple fact that we are people and people need specialized maintenance sometimes. And Ruby, you said you've never had to do physical therapy, but I've considered it because my feet almost always hurt after dance class. I will say this, and once again, I'm not a medical care provider in any way, shape, or form, or a professional. I am just somebody who's dealt with a lot of this. Consult with your medical care provider and inform them of this. I would very much consult with a podiatrist because my old podiatrist, Dr. Sir Frederick Fedorchik, and yes, he was a knight. He had been knighted by the Princess of Austria for his service both to the World Health Organization and to her personally, where she flew out to Portage, Indiana, to have her ankle surgery done in his office. Anyway, he saw how I walked and basically demanded I get an appointment with him during my wife's appointment with him, and diagnosed me with several things that they were finally able to realize I would have ruptured a large number of discs. He's put me on the path that kept me out of the wheelchair thus far. I would have been permanently and fully disabled, at least in my legs and spine, had that been allowed to occur. So a good podiatrist can give you inserts. Depending on how your feet hurt, there are other treatments for what's going on. Your feet should not hurt bad enough that it comments. Now, one thing that you'll have to learn is pain, and this is anybody doing what we do. You have to learn calibration of yourself, which means you're going to have to learn what it feels like if you have a low blood sugar. And I'm going to get from a lot of people, well, I'm diabetic. Nope. Anyone who does not eat enough and overexerts may get a low blood sugar. That's just the nature of the beast. You have to know what it feels like when you're approaching dehydration so that you can do something about that, which reminds me, I did down a drink right before the stream, but my throat's starting to get sore, so I need to set up the second one. You need, as much as you study the application of force against other bodies and what's facilitated of it, you need to study and pay attention to your own physical state. You need to know, are you sore? Are you injured? And you need to be able to tell how that's going to affect your ability to do things. And this is for everyone. I'm not harping on Ruby in any way, shape, or form. I want to make sure that that's clear. This is part of the process. You have to know yourself. And I've had so many major injuries over the years that, for example, I could lose all the weight, get ripped. I would never have the defined 6-pack or 8-pack or anything you see because of the heinous damage to my abdominal muscles from the rather severe double hernia I got when I got crushed. And I was digging myself out. That causes the way the muscles healed. There's some things. Obviously, it's not nearly as bad as it was. It's been quite some time, but it's something that... And yes, there you go. Learn the difference between normal pain and injury pain. If it's normal pain, keep going. If it's injury pain, stop and get medical help. And the trick I have found is if it feels hot, if it feels sudden, if it feels tearing. When you were talking about pain, and this is really a great subject to go into, when you're talking about pain, you need to use adjectives to explain. Yes. And new normal pain or injury. Yes, absolutely. And this is for everybody. Because remember, the people I traditionally work with are non-traditional students. Because if you are, healthy and agile, there are a lot of ways to find martial arts training readily. If you have a physical limitation or mental or emotional challenges, it can be much harder. And those limitations can be stature. I hate to say body weight because so much of it gets harped on weight, but it can be. And stature can be short or excessively tall. In that most people will not know how to work outside the scope of the, traditional. And I want to make it absolutely clear, as always, I am not looking at this like what I do will make you the Grand Master High Puba. No. You can learn a very applicable, very practical, basic, in simplicity in movement and function form with me. And then I will help direct you, if you have interest, to more advanced forms. And Trelena is absolutely right in speaking on the good advice. And tragically, it's not something that can be taught to you easily. A lot of it comes from experience. But if you've experienced severe pain, or severe injury, you quickly know the difference. It's like they were talking about the stretches that I had to do. It's some, were very new to me. And there were a few I've been doing for the last, 26 years from back that I picked up when I was running cross country. And I've done them since then. So I'm very familiar with them. You have to know how your individual body is working and what it is telling you. And not just for the sport side of things, not just for the martial art fun side of things. This is something you should be evaluating passively as a self-diagnostic, self-assessment. Just like I'm always talking about being situationally aware, part of that situation is how healthy, capable, and motivated are you to deal with any given situation. For example, if someone is being an absolute jerk in the restaurant, but they're keeping to themselves mostly, and the staff is handling it, I might be capable of dealing with it. I might be, knowledgeable enough to deal with it, but I'm not terribly motivated because it's not really my situation. If if that stuff comes to my table, then I might become more motivated. I'm not paid towards heroics, therefore I do not usually perform them, nor do I recommend them, unless they are absolutely necessary. But as Foxy says, when you live with pain constantly, you learn to talk about it. And as we age, we're going to gain new and exciting pains and limitations. So it's very important to develop a mental understanding of your body's physical vocabulary. What is it telling you? Is this the pain that comes from you're just not getting enough sleep? Is this the pains and symptoms that come from, hey, you need to drink the wet, sloshy stuff, or you need to go see some sun, or you need to eat the green things, or have you taken your meds? And the first step to all of that, just like the first step to the martial capabilities, is awareness. Okay? We always want to build awareness. I am very glad that the sore on your ear isn't cancer. I'm, from the bottom of my heart, I'm very glad. I have an aunt who is currently going through breast cancer, and my mother went through that. So cancer's been something that's been on my radar for a very long time. And please keep us informed if you're comfortable sharing. Foxy and Cindy is motivating her, and yay, celebrating. But let's see. Yes, Trey says, I've got hallelujah. Trey says, I've started scheduling an intentional rest day each week and not trying to make myself earn it, because people yell at me that rest isn't a reward. It's a necessity, and I am bad at knowing when I know it. Hi, pot kettle. Welcome to the Dutch Oven Club, but cauldron kettle more likely. But now I want tea and stew. Dang it! I have rice and pork roast and then some kind of veg waiting for me when the stream is over. But yes, some people wonder why I don't broadcast on a couple days. I do the release of a pre-recorded video on Tuesday or Thursday. But because of the way my week is, I have to take at least Tuesday as a rest kind of recover day, because my weekends are usually rather active. And Thursday night is always kind of a big deal around my house because I spend time with my wife. And that's our Friday most of the time. My Friday nights are obviously spent right here with you guys, trying to help build you guys up. But I know that Tuesday I'm not going to do much. And what I do will be very separate from the type of thing I do here. So I might go out and do something physical, but it's relieving me the mental and the stress. But I'll be honest, I've got to the point where as soon as I'm done streaming, I go eat something Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then I tend to take a bit of a nap because Sanders' behaviors have gotten controlled enough that I can. And given that I have severe sleep apnea and I have severe insomnia, catching a nap is probably a good idea. I don't always get to do it on my machine like I should, because sometimes the nap catches me before I catch it. But we need to balance that out, and we need to talk about the requirements of our body to be able to perform the actions that we are seeking. We need fuel. We need hydration, because hydration is part of lubrication. We need rest. We need to make sure we're actually breathing. And we need a mentality that is conducive with learning through play. Because there is no finer teacher than play. Now, there's no more effective, pressing, shall we say, professor than necessity. But play is the way our mind was meant to learn. When you are learning how to do something, knowing the why many times is equally important to knowing the how. And because a lot of American culture is built on training obedience into the young, a lot of the necessary mental flexibility and personal rigidity isn't there. People aren't taught to have the courage to ask why. And that is a very, very important question. In many times, the intent is just as important, if not more so, than the outcome. Now, of course, there are exceptions, and accidents happen, both positive and negative, all the time. But the intent at its core greatly affects what you do and how you do it. So you need to understand that. I know this is a little odd. This is a little quasi-philosophical. A little of the sword theology, if you will. I've had that thrown my way a couple times. But if I say to a student, okay, you're going to fight, defend yourself. And nope, I forgot to trace that thing down. Your approach is going to be very different than I say, kick his butt. When I've told the story before, but it's time to tell it again. When my buddy John Miner was authorizing as a fencer in the SCA, it was frowned upon in certain communities. A lot of the fencers did not want heavy fighters of his perceived mentality to be welcome on the light field. They weren't sure it was safe. And further, they weren't sure that the heavy fighters would have the right level of respect for their betters. Being that I did not teach John to sword fight. John knew how to sword fight. I taught him how to turn his sword fighting into fencing for his own safety and amusement and the terror of a great many others. I, in short, helped John find his fight and learn the rules, and to do both without anybody getting hurt. It took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort, but the results are remarkably impressive. I'm still proud of what that man achieved. But being me, and that I was just at that time the hobbling guy who used to fence, and maybe he does again, I'm not sure. My little golly came out, and I toddled over, and I stood by the marshals who were assessing his fights, and I knew he had been spot on and perfect in everything. They had not and I listened, and they said, he did great. He's going to authorize, but we need to make sure we put him in his place first. So be sure, start about. Be sure to take him down a couple pegs. He needs to know his betters. Know his betters. I will never forget that. I heard that in my soul. And one of the most deadly things to ever leave my mouth was uttered very softly. And it was not how it would be presented here. The phrase is, "The heck you say," and it is never heck. And being me, I toddled over. I said, "John, and he leaned over. What?" I said, "John, they're going to mess with you." I said, Kick there. Do what you gotta do. And like the eyebrows. I saw this man's eyebrows go up when through the mask. And I smiled. And I remember watching him turn and do the pop, and you could hear big old vertebrae. They walked up. They said Leone just sat his dagger right across the dude's eyes, went shink, because he'd been playing nice with his reach. And was that good, my lord? Oh, God. It was so beautiful because they weren't calibrated dealing with people with monstrous reach. I think that's why when I got to play with Magnus, I had so much fun. I like short rapiers. I do. I like 30-inch rapiers. 34 is very comfortable for me. What? Over there. 30 is nice. Is that a rapier? Yes, it's just a short rapier. Are you sure that counts? Is it legal? Well, yes. Then it counts. But getting to spar against a gentleman who was 7 feet tall with rapiers longer than I am tall. I mean, seriously, the overall size of these rapiers were higher than my 5'5" at the time. Oh! It was a remembered fight. It was a good fight. I missed that fight. I miss fighting with John. And I'm hoping in the coming weeks, as weather stabilizes, we will be able to reignite some of that. That you may get to hear steel on steel clanging in the backyard once again. Which is the sound of my heart. Because whether it's forging metal or splitting wood or fencing. The sound of steel on steel is the song that plays to parts of my very soul. And I love this about Ruby. Ruby says, being raised in a situation where asking questions was disobedience, I am now learning to ask, which is why I usually pepper people with questions. Ruby, my dear, dear, dear friend, that's what we're here for. I know. I get messages from Trelane, and she will delight, and I mean this wholeheartedly, delight in the beauty of the questions you ask, the sensibility of the questions you ask. Do you know what Ruby asked me? No, do tell. And yes, we talk. It is always positive. Always. Because you were one, we wouldn't talk about a student's difficulties. We handle them privately. That's how one teaches. But what you are doing, Ruby, is so blessed and so vital. You are, through your honest questions and the unique angles that you ask them, making Trelana a better sword mistress. There are things I'm proud of. As both a sword master and as guild master of the Historical Fencing Guild. Moments that I consider my peak. And ironically, if I were to give the list, I could talk about being last man standing on a 7v7 melee. It could be the attorneys that have come second. It could be a lot of things. But my favorite memory thus far isn't even watching my students authorize, although I love that. I was at my friend Steve and Rachel's house, and we were holding practice over there. And I excused myself to go into the house to go to the bathroom. And we had 25, Trey, you were there, 25, 30 people at that point. Just stacks of cars at that point. And I came out. And I stopped. And Trelane had taken over for the parts that I was working on. And I looked over, and there she was working on that with some of the newer students, doing what she loves. Off to the side was a major conversation on karambits. Basically, we had a Krav Maga guy and a Penn Salat guy discussing the differences while sparring to the enchantment, shall we say, of several young men. Off to another side, Mandy. Mandy was using a glaive and talking about glaive versus staff techniques with some other people. And I kept looking around, and there were 5 modules actively going on, where people who knew their specialty were sharing it with others. Because through the process of the guild, what I do is I instruct people in as close to a universal, basic Western martial arts style. The names change when you talk to different masters. The names always change. Language dialect, temporal context. Language changes. But the actions still are the same at the level that I've focused on. Because I am not looking for the secret shot. I am not looking for this is how you mass produce fighters. I am looking for the most distilled way that will apply to everyone that I can tweet to help you, whoever you are. The people in the chat, the people watching this vid, the federal agents keeping an eye on me. Hi, guys. I want them to all have a Rosetta Stone and a similar foundation so that they can go out. And from that foundation, I mean, I've always said I'm just a hand giving a look. I'm just a footstool. You guys go up to the next level, but you choose which next level you want to go. It's a tech tree. It's not linear. Okay? It's not like you're a level 1 fencer, level 2 fencer. No. I mean, if you want to do SCA or whatever, you can do it through getting your authorizations and then, the political game, etc. Or you could go collegiate and get ranked, which is what Al wants me to do. I can't afford. The way we look at it, it'd be about $400 for me to get the proper gear, assuming I can get down in size enough to fit in standardized gear. But it's learning to find what resonates, what your passion is. And then to share it with others who already have or are developing the same foundation. And maybe they'll stick with what you're doing. Maybe they'll go somewhere else. But it gives this sense of electives. It gives this sense of development. And as I stood there on the top of those stairs, looking around, it was a beautiful, beautiful sunny summer day. Far too bright for someone like me to be out and about anyway. Everyone was doing it. Everyone was discussing what they do. And there wasn't an ego to be found. There was no self-aggrandizement from a single soul. Every single person was they were in their lane, hydrated, living their best life. And the people who knew more on a subject were sharing what they knew with the people who didn't, and answering questions and learning more themselves. And I've never, ever seen that anywhere else. I've always seen you see it, and then you see this whole subline of cliques and social engineering. When you find the right people with the right motivation, it is a wonder. And the motivation is this: self-improvement through understanding of personal capabilities and interests and martial techniques. There you go. There's no need for ego. And if somebody's winning, they're better than that, either they're just better that day. Doesn't matter. That's not what we're here for. It's not about keeping points and ranks. It's about pure learning through application. Now, if you take that to a fierce competition setting, tournaments and stuff, or a tactical melee kind of setting, or a LARP where, there are storyline consequences for your victories or losses. Beautiful, wonderful, enjoy. But what I'm building, or what I have built for the last quarter of a century, is a place and an idea that anyone can find a fight that suits them. And if they learn to speak a similar dialect, a similar language with other people, they can exchange ideas to see what works for them. And when I looked out across that field, I knew, had I been so inclined, I could have walked right through it, because it was one of those times where nobody was noticing me. That happens sometimes. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. It's part of who and what I am. I could walk out, get my car, and drive off. And at some point, they might have noticed that I was gone. But the training would have continued. Do you get that? The training continues. The learning continues. The play continues. Because while we have to apply this, and what we learn must be prepared reasonably to apply in a painfully, frighteningly realistic situation. That is part of the realities and truths of any martial education. Because if it's not, you're just dancing with uncooperative partners. And I've seen a lot of dancing with uncooperative partners. I've seen a lot of dancing with very cooperative partners. I did this, and woo, he does this big flip. It's how did he do that big flip? Oh, it looks good. No, that's not what I'm about. And thesis says in here, I've often remarked of my students that it's almost better to start from zero, because then you don't have to eliminate the biases you didn't know you had. To which I say, no one starts from zero. Nobody. Unless you are working with an actual infant who has had very limited exposure to anything else, no one starts from zero. Everyone has an idea of what physical altercations are like, what physical combat is like. Everybody has experience of some sort. In some way. It may be incredibly minor, but there's something. So the trick when training is to find out what their experience is. And instead of crushing it, which is the traditional actor, and there's nothing wrong with that, if you are looking for mass-producible, consistent results across all your fighters. If it is developing a specific individual style and propagating that individual style, that's perfect. And you will always have people who come even to the right of you with ideas of what they think will work. And my response to it is not to crush the idea necessarily. It is to allow space to test it with few exclusions. Now, I exclude things like, I just see red and then then you don't have control. Then you come with me, and we work through that. And we take the long road home. And I'm fine with that. Some of my favorite students come from backgrounds like that. Ironically, the people who have the most practical application of real-world violence, both the damage done from receiving violence, as a large number, I'd say well over 80% of my students come have that mentality, to the damage done from inflicting violence. Because whenever actual violence is executed, it harms both parties. And part of the tremendous karmic debt that I must address and redress from instructing people in systems that could be manifested as applicable, dangerous to lethal violence, were it misused beyond my intention, is to give behind it my philosophical and, I want to say spiritual, because this doesn't have to do with religion per se, understanding from having been on both sides of remarkably extreme levels of violence. And having associated my whole life with individuals who have been in those places. It is not enough for me to say, this is how you throw a shot, this is how you block a shot, this is how you move, this is how you... What makes a good sword, what makes a bad sword? No. I want to give you as many tools as humanly possible to recognize the violence others may do to you, to recognize the violence that you may do to others, and mitigate both. I sought the sword to find peace. I picked up the sword to put down my rage. So I will give you guys technique. I will always give you technique. I will always answer your technique questions to the best of my ability, up to and including the concept of I don't know. But I also cannot allow myself... Hold on. My camera's being fuzzy. The Nick Field's acting up again. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. I can't allow myself to ever be too comfortable with praise, because it is my goal to be obsolete. It is my goal to teach every student to be more skillful than I am in all things. I want you to both be better at the physical and mental techniques and be better at de-escalation. My goal is always towards the battle that is won without a drop of blood being spilled, without a single blow being thrown, without a body hitting the ground. I quite dislike death. I see it as currently a necessary universal process, something unfortunately inevitable for us all as a sentient being, sapient. I get those two flipped, I will admit it. But I don't seek it lightly, nor do I tolerate its application lightly. Nor should I. And we have to understand the realities at the core of what we do. And I know it's not fun. It's not fun. Because everybody wants to be the main character. Everyone wants to be the hero on some level. I do. Good Lord. I'm a big anime dork. I love watching isekais. Of course, everybody wants on some level to be the main character. And the thing is, I've met a couple people in my time, fewer than you think, who are. They're the kind of people that they live on a different axis, a different tier of capabilities and potential. One of them is a regular around these folks here. And they know it. There are a couple that know it but don't admit it to themselves around here. And a couple who will only become that elevated place of a being who's actively and through their actions shaping, not simply reacting, the world around them on tangible, measurable, and at times historic levels. The only way they'll be able to do that is to give up thinking they're doing that. Get a humility. It's a B. Gate of the Fool's another one. Ooh, Gate of the Fool sucks. You go through these things. But if you can honestly assess where you are, if you can honestly and fearlessly ask the questions that need to be asked, you can become a wonder of a force for change. I prefer to be, if at all, positive. Not everyone I've worked with has gone that route. That goes into to my ledger under red. There's a good bit of red in the ledger on that one. Even the best of intentions can have remarkably negative outcomes. But that does not mean we stop trying. That does not mean we give up conceptually on the idea of self-mastery. Because that's what this all is. If you gain self-mastery, if you gain control of your mind, your body, your spirit, the big three, there are few battles that could ever be victory be victorious against you. And those that can never destroy you. They can end you, but they can't destroy you. There's a difference. Because in the end, there are only two kinds of people. And it comes us back to pain. My most frequent instructor. No entity, force, or anything save, the boss, has so directly interacted with me as pain. When you understand it. And I don't mean, this is it hurt and I dealt with it. No. I mean, understand what it means to be in pain. And then understand what it means to have both pain inflicted upon you and inflicting pain upon others. If we're getting, again, to the real nitty-gritty. As we go through this journey, there are only two kinds of people that come up. The people who suffered, and feel if they suffered, everyone else should. And the people who endured pain and would wish it to never happen to anyone else again. I think I have no greater criteria when I work with someone. No greater hope and no greater safeguard than seeking out and working with people who have endured difficulties and would never wish someone else to have to. They would hope that to not. These are the interesting people. These are the wonderful people. These are the people who give me hope in a world of darkness and dragons. And if you want to know who people like that are, where you can find them, you just look in the chat. You look down at this, the scroll, you'll see a list of names, my wonderful patrons. Every one of those people are among those. I delight in finding inexpensive gear for you. I delight in finding techniques that improve what I pass on. Hi. I delight in my cat talking to me. But, where are we? Well, yeah, come on up. We're going to talk. Hi, Dusty. Now, did you run off, Stuart? Did you run off, Stuart? We're going to go down. They don't need to see your butt. Okay. You going to hunker or you can just stand there? Anyway, you're going to hunker. You know the routine. I tell you guys, I dream of a world where I am obsolete. And I don't just mean my martial skills or my tactical situational skills, but also all the coping skills I've had to deal with to help people maybe want to stick around for another day, to help me want to stick around for another day. I dream of a world where I have absolutely no place in it. Because if we can reach that, if we can reach a world where I am useless not by my own failings, but by my success. What a wonderful world it would be. And until we get there, until we get to a place where people only spar for sport, where knives are never thrown in anger, and arrows are only loosed in competitions of marksmanship, a world where the strong only elevate the weak. Well, until we get there, I'm going to keep trying to devise ways to help those who might not have as much have a little bit more, be it strength, be it confidence, be it emotional awareness, be it hope. And that might be painfully naive. It is. It might be earth-shatteringly unlikely. It is. But there's always the narrowest possibility. And I think that's just enough. Don't you, Dusty? When you clean your swords, the speech impediment, they should reflect the light of your soul. We should pursue our knowledge with equal parts humility and hope, because it is possible to carve a better life for you, for your loved ones, for our nation, and for our world. With even a blunted sword. And with that, my friends, I'm going to say, guys, check out the new trainers that I was supposed to talk on and got distracted from. They're over at woodenswords.com. Question mark click equals 1745. This is my affiliate link if you choose to buy anything, and just make sure that I get enough press to, when I make suggestions, that he makes them. And more importantly, though, your drills, keep your eyes open, be kind to yourself and each other, and as always, thank you for supporting your local swordmaster. I will be back Monday on the other channel for Never Mind the Furthermore. I will be back here, well, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I will be back here Friday night, bare minimum, for another episode of Historical Fencing Guild's live stream. We have a thriving public Facebook group that you can attend and ask questions. As my health and situation settles and improves, I am doing things more for my patrons. And I'm grateful for them for making what I do possible financially as they scroll by again. But I'm grateful for you guys listening. So, have a great evening, folks, and I'll see you next time.